Do you ever get angry? Silly question, we all do. But how do you handle anger? How do you move forward through it? And most importantly, how do you cope with yourself when you're angry, and how to help others cope is what this episode is all about. And I think it's going to be a little bit of a touchy subject because it's anger. And I think anger in general is kind of like it's just like a hot stove, right? You're like, okay, I know I'm not supposed to touch it, but I got to do something about that heat. How you doing, Kat?
I'm good. If you're watching on YouTube, you will see that I have brought my smiley face hat to this interview about anger, this podcast episode about anger, I should say. So I am dressed and ready for the occasion.
This episode was your idea, and I really like it. It's not something that I mean, my whole life, I was really tamped down with anger. It wasn't something that you exhibited. The dynamic that I had just didn't allow for it because of my sister and her sensitivities to noise and just any kind of aggression, really. So I'm kind of discovering anger in a safe way, as you would call it, in my, in my later years.
Yeah.
What would you say to somebody like me who is like, how do I handle this? When I get angry, what do I do?
Well, it's a good question. I was actually going to encourage you to give listeners some background because if this is their first time listening to our show, they might not know. I know you've talked about your sister a lot in previous episodes, but they might not have understood that reference. And then that can give us a good jumping off point, like just sharing some of our personal experiences and how we've had to learn and adapt to anger and handling it and all of that.
Absolutely. My sister has very, very severe autism. I would say she's kind of trapped. Yeah, she's a 40-year-old trapped in a 3-year-old's body. And growing up, she would get terrible migraines all the time. Like you could set your clock to it. You knew like it was Monday afternoon, she would have a migraine and it would last for usually a couple of days. As I went through all this, I had to get quiet. And then there was other things that came up. My sister abused me. She was very violent with me. And I was never as angry as I could get. I knew better than to retaliate against my sister, who really didn't have control of her faculties when these things were happening. But I also ended up swallowing a lot of anger that didn't have many releases over the years. And so my coping way of doing that with my anger just was, I don't know if it's common or not. I never know if my experiences are common. The more people I talk to, I'm getting like head shakes going like, no, that wasn't normal. So maybe this is a normal anger thing. Maybe it's not. But I find that experiencing anger led me to just feel on edge because that energy had nowhere to go. I mean, like, what is anger? It's this buildup of energy. It's like a fight or flight response that doesn't have a release, in my case. But for many other people, it comes out in very different ways. It comes out with, passive aggressive, I think would have been my only release, which isn't really a release. It's just like, burying it deeper. Another one would be, just explosive outbursts, which I lived with because of my sister, but I personally was never like that. And then there's just like that internalization too, that I don't know how to handle it. So it just kind of sits there and I feel terrible and a pressure cooker with those types of things.
Yeah. And that this is my sentiment, but I still am, very sorry that you had to go through that as a child. No child should have to, tamp down their anger, but also like tamp down their joy just to avoid, noises and things like that. And all of us, including the people listening, have likely had some type of experience or some type of negative experience with anger, whether they saw like the wrong ways to handle it, or they've had to learn on their own how to handle it, or maybe right now it's something they're struggling with and they don't know the next steps to take. So whether or not someone has been in your exact situation, they likely have encountered anger and like the discomfort that it causes outside people and within yourself.
Yeah, thank you. Well, thank you for saying that in the beginning, and for normalizing some of the stuff in a positive way.
Mm-hmm.
I appreciate you doing that.
Sure. Sure. I know for me, I have seen a lot and have been around a lot of examples of explosive anger in my lifetime. And it's really been in the last couple of years that I have been very insistent upon having a calm home and calm environment. And what I had to do, like in this process, and what I continue to do, is I had to realize that I actually had a ton of anger within myself. Initially I thought, I'm in this home, I'm solo parenting, I'm, gonna have this like home where we feel our feelings and everything is very soft. But I had a lot of unresolved anger that I've had to work through. And when it came out, it always came out in moments of high stress, of course. It was more likely to come out when I've had a bad night of sleep. And I know that a lot of parents can relate to this, like maybe snapping at your kids or something and you feel terrible about it later. I always apologize to my kids, like when I snap at them later, because I want to set the example for them for how you should handle big things. Now, a couple things about me is I am very sensory sensitive. I think that, had I been a kid, my kid's age today, there would have been a lot more things in place to like manage that, like there's like sensory days at museums and things like that. That is me to a T. Um, but of course, when I was a kid, they weren't anything in place like that, right? So even now, I find that I've got to manage a lot of sensory overload. And one of the coping things that I do, and one of the things that I've instituted in place for myself, is I let my kids know like where I'm at out of 10. So if they are maybe having a hard day or they're tired, maybe there's a little bit more whining or a little bit more, sibling disagreement or something like that, I can say, guys, I'm just letting you know, mommy's at an 8. Because a few years ago, I would have just like tamped it down, dealt with it, tried to fix the problem, made dinner anyway, and something would be the last straw. And I'd be like, I'd yell, or I'd be like, go to your room or do whatever, like it's bedtime, like turn the TV off, whatever it is. But now what I do is I try to let the people in my life ahead of time know um, where I'm at on the scale. And then I have to take extra steps to put myself first. And it's up to me and it's my responsibility to pull myself down on the number chart and get myself back to a baseline so that I can be a better mom, partner, worker, all the things to everyone else.
So thank you for sharing that. I'm going to dig into this a little bit more, if that's all right, just because I think what you're expressing and what you're explaining are very, very common for a lot of people in the population, where it's, you know, it comes out often in the wrong place and on the wrong person.
Mm-hmm.
And there's no finger pointing with that. It's just, we need to have two things. First of all, we need to have self-awareness, because then we can change, right? So for you, when you start to get angry, what are your cues? What are the things that you start to kind of go, I'm not 100% all right, or I'm getting to a 10, as you phrased it.
An incredible amount of impatience. I do feel like I have a well of patience. I have twins. I have, been a work from home mom since the time they were born. I am able to manage a lot of chaos and run a business in the midst of chaos. But, and so I can usually very calmly tell my kids, all right, I'm noticing you two are disagreeing again on who's sitting in the front seat. And instead of being like, suck it up, do rock, paper, scissors, and like, or both of you sit in the back or whatever, I'm just like, you need to go talk about it amongst yourselves, learn how to negotiate or whatever. But I noticed that if my like immediate tendency is just to like snap or be like, oh my God, I can't deal with this. I know that I'm getting to that point of like impatience. I'm running out of steam, energy. Like I think every day I wake up with a well of patience. It's just like this little bucket of water I'm carrying around, but things test my patience, right?
Fair
And,
enough.
yeah, I can handle things like I can handle slow lines, traffic, all these things. It's usually at the end of the day when the little bucket only has a few drops left that I can feel it. It's the impatience, and the impatience leads to overwhelm because then it's like,
Okay.
oh my gosh, I have so much to do. This is too much for me. Too many places to go. Too many things left on the checklist, and then I just kind of spiral.
Okay. Well, thank you for sharing that. So, what are your ways of diffusing these things as you start to notice them coming up? What do you do to diffuse? You mentioned kind of like letting people know, but
Mm-hmm.
I'm more talking about like there is a physical sensation in your body as this is
Oh yeah.
happening that's probably getting ignored. And I know for myself, it's like by the time you point out that I'm angry, I've already been angry for a while because I'm just
Mm-hmm.
not that aware. And I think there's a bit of shame in my instance too, of
Sure.
like, it's like you're not, everybody calls me calm all the time. So I feel like when I'm
You
not living
guys,
up
you
to
have to
that,
be there.
yeah. So, but so for you, like, what do you do?
Yeah.
You're at a 10, you're at a
Yeah.
20 or 100 if you go that high. I'm not sure, but like whatever you
I
are
don't think
at, what do
anyone
you
wants to
do?
see that.
So,
Well, first, I will answer your question of what I do when I'm at a 10.
okay.
Your comment reminded me of something like Ellen DeGeneres said. I think she did her stand up after her show, and she was like, you do not know how hard it is to be like the funny, nice person all the time. You can't yell at anyone in traffic. Like, you can't put a toe out of line. And when you were saying, like, everyone's like always saying how nice and calm Andrew is, and he is, but I can see how it would cause a little spike of shame. Like if you are feeling that way, you might be like, oh, everyone thinks I'm nice and calm, but I'm so mad right now. And
Yeah.
as part of that, Andrew, I think it's good for us to say on this show is one of our beliefs is that there are no bad emotions. There's just emotions. There are emotions that feel better in our bodies. There's emotions that we'd like to have, but we've said this before, right? We wouldn't know happy without sad. We wouldn't know joy without the anger. We wouldn't know these things. We wouldn't know feeling healthy without being sick sometimes. And so the contrast is necessary. And for that reason, there are no bad feelings. However, what I tell my kids all the time is you can feel however you want. You just can't act however you want. Right. So we have to
Okay.
have different, right? So they can be feeling mad, but they can't,
Punch
yell
the
at
other one.
people in the middle of Target or something, right?
Oh yeah.
Not that they ever would, but it's like you can
Yeah.
have the feeling, but we all have to find ways that work for us. I'm happy to share the coping skills that I do when I'm at a tent, but they're very specific to me and my personality. And that's why we always talk about self awareness. So you have to be, you meaning our listeners, have to be aware of what it means for you, what it brings out in you, and things that work for you. So for me, highly sensory sensitive and a major introvert. So when I'm at a 10, the thing I need the most is to recharge my battery. And Andrew can attest to this of the miracle of 30 minutes alone for me. I can go in my room for 30 minutes. I can put on a fiction book. I can get under the covers. I can even set like a 30-minute alarm on my phone and not sleep, but just kind of just chill. And what I feel in my body when I'm angry is I actually feel a sense of heat in my forehead. I feel like I have a fever. I feel like I could touch my fingers to my head and it's like burning hot. I feel that sensation. And so for me personally, given how my personality is, 30 minutes by myself like cools that heat off of me. It takes all the things that are like prickly on me and it just brings it down to where it literally only takes 30 minutes and I can come back and do what I need to do.
That's good. For me, again, I'm just going to kind of go over my process. Usually somebody is pointing out that I'm angry, or I will like look down. My tell was always my fists. And it's not like I'd be like, making fists. I would just be like, my hands would start to clench. I think is maybe a better
tension
term.
thing.
Tension. Yeah. It was a clenching. Same thing with my jaw. And so when those things happen, I recognize that there is what I'm holding on to is, the absence of the feeling, if that's something you can hold on to, is meaning like I'm angry, but I don't want to feel angry. But my body is coming up and it's going like, no, we're angry right now. We got to do something about this. So what I'm trying to find balance with right now is for ways to release it. So, I've punching a pillow works for a lot of people. It gets that physical energy out. I've done that once or twice. I'm not a very violent person. So to me, I'm like, wanting to apologize to the pillow afterwards for hitting it, which doesn't make a lot of sense.
Snuggle in with the pillow.
So one of the things that, recently I did was I have like a Vibe platform, and it just shakes you basically like while you do your exercises. So I just did like a quick circuit on it for 5-10 minutes, and it just kind of helps to get that energy moving along. So it's cold outside. I didn't feel like going for a walk, but I used to go for like a walk or a run. I come back feeling a lot better. Breathing is another one that just starts to, I find that works better in the beginning. Meaning like if I'm starting to go like, if like, just as an example, if you were to say like, like that was a dumb idea and I get offended and I get a little angry. Not that you've ever said that.
I don't think I've ever said that, but no, good example.
But when that happens, like I'll just be like, okay, that, take a couple of deep breaths in, just focus on the exhale, letting that energy that's starting to build up come out. And that's really how I try to look at things is if there is an energy that is building up inside of you, which is being caused like by anger, which is like, your heart races, your body tenses up, that energy needs to be dispelled one way or another, or else it gets buried inside of you in a way that, it'll come out later. It might come out in 20 minutes. It might come out in 2 years at a, most inopportune time. So I think part of it is just knowing what works for you and finding those healthy ways to kind of release it. You were over yesterday and we have that Instant Pot, and there's 2 pressure valves on it. And when you want to when your cooking's done, there's a ton of pressure in this thing. And you can do it one of 2 ways. You can just let that pressure kind of release gradually and naturally on its own, which is really good if you're not really hungry and wanting to, just let it cook. But most likely you're starving and you want to let it out, and there's a pressure valve for it. And when the pressure comes out, it's like it's burn your finger off type of hot. So you have to be very careful with that. And I think that's a really good analogy for kind of looking at ways of, releasing your anger in a way that makes sense. Because if you don't release it in those 2 ways, that pressure stays inside the pot, inside your body, and it's going to come out, and it is not going to be pretty. You are going to get spaghetti all over the walls. It's going to just explode. It's going to be dirty and nasty. And you're going to wish you had listened to this podcast and come up with a few different tactics for handling it. I don't know why I'm shamelessly plugging a podcast for anger during the anger episode 20 minutes in, but here we are. My promotion skills will get better.
Andrew, I just want to say that was a good analogy.
And I got it in by the end of 2024.
Yeah, so, the Instapot, right? That's a great analogy for it, and so interesting too. Here are a couple things. Let's just give a couple ideas to people. So, lots of people like running. In fact, we read a whole book on exercise this year, and the runner's high is a real legitimate, scientifically proven fact. I think a lot of people exercise and run daily to prevent themselves from ever getting to a 10, right? So there's things that you can do to manage daily. to get there. Exercise is one great thing. I have a rebounder that Andrew bought me. It's really fun. A lot of people they can change their mood very quickly with music. Fun song on the radio, dancing is another thing that is scientifically proven to improve mood. Moving your body, again, lots of people take a walk, things like that. Talking to someone, calling a friend, like letting off that anger, talking, like helping someone else is another thing. I was like in a really frustrated mood earlier today, and I ended up talking to my brother about his new baby, and we were just talking through different things, and he was asking me questions about what I did when my twins were babies, and I just felt like we had a really good conversation, and I was able to help him, and my brother's just really smart and easy to talk to. We chatted about a couple of like different things in the news lately, and it just changed my mood because like I focused on him and his little cute baby was cooing in the background, and it made me feel so good to get to chat with him. And so sometimes just calling somebody, calling a friend, even if you don't talk about the issue at hand or what you're angry about, just changing the topic is good. Watching a funny show, anything. There's so many things you can do. And it's taken me a long time to learn about, the 30-minute recharge my battery time. The kids know what that is. Andrew knows what that is. And, but it's taken me a long time to realize that that's all it takes, right? I don't have to like lock myself in my room for 3 hours. Like you'll learn over time what works for you, but it is important to be aware, know your triggers, and to then take the next step of believing that you are worthy of having a pleasant and calm life and a good day. And when you feel that happening, you deserve to feel better, and that there's things that you can do to manage those feelings so that you don't do something you regret, say something you regret, or harm the relationships in your life that are most important to you.
I like that. Thank you for sharing those things. Here's just a rapid fire of some things that you can do. So first one is get out of your situation. If you're angry, there's probably something in your environment that's causing that. And getting outside, getting some fresh air, sun on your face, going for a walk or run, great ways to do it. Another one is to just, if you can't go outside because you live where I live and it's just too dang cold, you stay inside and maybe do some jumping jacks, move your body around in one way or another. Another one is just breathe. Do some box breathing. Breathe in for 4 counts, hold it for 4 counts, let it out for 4 counts, and then pause for 4. And you just do that box breathing until you feel better. Usually 90 seconds seems to be my magical number for that. Another thing we had talked about was stress balls. They exist for a reason. Punching a pillow, any kind of physical movement is going to help dispel that energy that is building up inside of you. And even things like yoga or Tai Chi can also help you. It's just a matter of whatever you feel is the right thing for you. We're just trying to give you some things to help you cope. For some people, journaling about it can really help. Just kind of acknowledging where your feelings are. Angry typing, rage writing. Is that a thing? Did I make that up? Is rage writing a thing? It sounds really good.
One. We should see if the URL is available.
We should. That's not. Another thing is to reach out to somebody and just have a conversation, whether it's about the topic at hand or just trying to help somebody. One of my big things for because I went through some really, really rough times, and I'm still coming out of, some darker times. And the thing I like to do is make other people smile. So, I live in a block that's like mostly senior citizens. And I kind of like that because they're grateful. And, you just say hi and it lights them up because, that might be the first person they've spoken to today. And that's really, really nice. So
Andrew's
trying to find a way to make somebody else happy.
It's like Andrew's like the cute young strapping lad in his condo complex. He's so sweet. He like picks up packages for people and like, I don't know. What do you like changing light bulbs for people?
I've done everything. I have.
So sweet.
Yeah. I kind of look at it like it's just good karma. I would hope that at some point when I'm in a place like that and, my neighbor got really sick, I had to go with him to the hospital. He was dead against it, but I still I went with him. I sat with him in the hospital for 6 or 7 hours in emergency because there was nobody else there for him. And to me, it's just being good. But again, doing good feels good,
It
which
does.
helps get you out of that state of anger. It's an emotional state. And I think a lot of the times we think we have to logically move out of it, but an emotion needs an emotional response of some kind
Yeah.
to kind of shift you along. And, like anger is that one where you kind of got to let it out in the ways that it makes sense. So, and I liked your idea too, Kat, of just laughing,
Yeah.
like just of like watching a show or something like that. We've gotten into watching some pretty, good shows, and it's like, no matter what we're watching and it makes us laugh,
Yeah.
it's just a release of that energy, and it's so much better.
Yeah, it is. And I feel like it's important for me to say on this episode, we are talking about being self-aware and releasing anger. And we did say that anger is an emotion and that there are no bad emotions. However, it's really important for me to note the distinction between, anger and violence, which is acting out anger. And I want to say that it is never okay for somebody to physically harm you or any of your belongings. If anger manifests as holes in the wall, breaking furniture, things being thrown, things like that, that is unacceptable levels of anger. What we are talking about, somebody like that who does things like that has far surpassed any number on any scale. And your life needs major, intervention. Nobody deserves that. So what we're talking about is general day-to-day feelings and fluctuations, and just how to make sure that you can get back to a state of calm. And so I just felt like it was important to say that, so no one ever thinks that we're condoning anger by saying it's a normal
Oh no,
emotion. I just felt it on my heart to clarify that.
I'm just getting a number up right here. If you are in a situation that you find yourself like that, where you do not feel safe with the person you are around, there are crisis centers that you can go to. There are people and places you can call. But if you are finding yourself in a situation where the anger has escalated to violence and rage, then you need to remove yourself from that situation. As painful as it might be, your safety is more important. It's paramount.
I agree.
So thank you for bringing that up, and we
Sure,
can put some phone numbers into
we
the
will.
notes too.
Let's say a glimmer. I know I didn't mean to end on a heavy note, but I
No,
just
it's
felt
good.
it on my heart to say
It's
it.
definitely
Um,
needed to be said.
but I think we have a shared glimmer, and that's that we got to hang out all last week in the flesh, in the person, face to
In the
face,
person. Yeah.
as human beings, not through the
As,
screen.
yeah. And it was a lot of fun. We got to do, you came up here because it was American Thanksgiving, and
Mm-hmm.
in Canada it was Thursday. So we just did, normal human things. And,
I went to my first hockey game. We saw Wicked. We went out to eat for American Thanksgiving because Andrew very kindly offered to cook and make turkey and stuff. And I was just like, no, let's skip it. And it was nice.
I like that. I like that we were able to kind of forego old traditions and create new ones. I did that in Canadian Thanksgiving, or as you guys
Yeah.
like to call the second weekend of October. And we did it, and it was really, it's nice. I had a really good time. It's also a lot nicer when you're not having to cook a turkey. I've
Yeah.
discovered. So yeah, not that I've cooked a ton of turkeys in my lifetime, but
Yeah, it was good. It was a
definitely a
really
good
good
shared memory.
time. We did attempt to take a walk outside, but it was negative 11 billion degrees, and we lasted about 1 minute. I think my eyeballs couldn't even see straight. It was so cold.
Yeah. Catherine understands why I look younger than I actually am. It's because my face only ages half the year. The other half, it is frozen cryogenically from the winter in Canada.
It
And
makes so
that's
much
okay.
sense now. You guys didn't know all those beauty routines were just available just by being Canadian.
Yeah.
So anyway, I
Yeah.
had a really nice time. Thank you so much for hosting me and having me. And It was a lot of fun. Should do it again sometime.
Thank you. Yeah, we'll definitely do it again. Thank you so much for coming up. And for all you listening, thanks again for tuning in, and we'll talk to you next time.
Bye.
Hey, it's Andrew. Are you feeling stuck in your life right now, kind of not sure where to go or what your next steps are? We've created a coaching program for you to help you discover your path, and we call it 5 weeks to future you. So what you'll get is 2-to-1 coaching with Catherine and I over 5 weeks while we help you figure out what the next steps are in your life. We offer a complimentary call. You just have to go to 5yearyou.com to check it out and set up your call with us to see if we're a good fit. I know from my own experience that it is incredibly hard to do this on your own, and that's why we're offering these coaching calls. We're only going to work with 5 people at a time to make sure that we can give you the attention that you truly deserve. So head on over to 5yearyou.com to get started.
Hey guys, quick disclaimer. We're podcasters on the internet. If you need to seek professional help, please go see your healthcare professional.